You also talked, I noted yesterday with Catherine Ryan on National Radio about a new normal when it comes to economics, not just getting back to normal after the global financial crisis, but creating a new normal. And, I've been listening to Joseph Stiglitz talk about there being a point where 40% of all the corporate profits in the United States were being made by the finance sector. And, when we look at what's happened in the States and to a lesser degree perhaps around the world, it just seems like such a scandal. We have absolutely been ripped off. And why aren't people rioting in the streets about this?
Well, I've been pretty tough on those banks and the Wall Street, I would call it the casino economy, and we're all standing outside the Las Vegas casino with our tin cups hoping for a big tip, and the people who caused this are making our record profits because they took, in the United States, we don't believe in socialism except for the richest, they're too big to fail. We bailed them out, and now they use our taxpayer money to make themselves richer, while on Main Street and on the back streets, people are really suffering. Yeah. So it is a scandal. However, we got to look in the mirror here, because an economy based on 70% consumption and debt is something that's gotten into our fiber and DNA, and it's that's happening to so many people.
You talk about these maxims, greed is good.
It's all about me, and I want it now, all that.
Absolutely, really resonates with me, and they're messages which I find so frustrating. But why have we adopted those? And why have we lost sight of those good traditional values you also talked about in contrast? I mean, is it advertising? Or it must be human nature. We create a niche for these things. Why have we lost hold of those good values and been seduced by these other things you talk about?
Well, seduced is the right word. We have been seduced by advertising. Always plays to our greed and our fear. We don't need the things that we are made to want, and we're afraid of not being what we're told we ought to be. And so we consume and consume and consume, and the word there is destroy, consume and destroy. We're destroying lots of things, the earth and our souls in the process. And Jesus says, don't be anxious for what you eat and drink and put on, but seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be taken care of. And so this ethic of simplicity and enough is enough, and patience and modesty and humility, these old virtues, we're in this together. And I love the native people ethic of you evaluate decisions today by their impact in the 7th generation out. These things can save us. These old virtues can save us now. They're the only things that will save us now.
But why do you think we've moved so far away from them?
Well, I think we really have been seduced by this drumbeat of consumption, and I think we haven't. Even our churches, our faith communities have become conformed to the world here, conformed to the values, the ethos of the culture. So we haven't been a counterculture. We haven't had the other values reinforced again and again and again. So Sunday morning is often just a reflection of the mores of the rest of the week that surround us, not offering a whole new way of living. And it's interesting where young people are being drawn to faith. It's not in churches that are just culturally conformed. There's no young people there. It's places where a whole new way of life is being talked about.
Well, you talked about, I've heard you mention a couple of times that half of your audience members tend to be under 30 these days.
Yeah.
Why do you, I mean, that sounds very hopeful. Why do you think that is happening?
I think young people want their faith to make a difference in the world. Unless their faith is lived, they're not interested. They're interested in just a bunch of things to believe, unless it changes how they live. And they want to live differently. They want to live for something more than just themselves. They want their lives to make a difference in the world. They want their faith to make a difference. So unless it's almost like we're not calling our young people to enough.
Right.
You know, we're not
Trying to
calling
make it
to
too easy for
enough.
them.
We're trying to say just kind of take on religion as another thing to add to your life.
Extracurricular activity.
It's another consumer good, you know, as opposed to this is something that is intended to change your life.
And do you think people are open, young people in particular, are open to that message just because that's the nature of young people? They tend to be more radical, they tend to be more idealistic? Or is it something about this generation in particular?
A little of each. I think generally young people are, they confront the world and they want to make a difference in the world. But this generation, I think, is, I'm more hopeful about this current generation than I have been for a while. I wasn't going to campuses for a while because there was nothing happening there, just a lot of partying, you know. But now there really is, particularly at campuses where evangelical Christian colleges or Catholic schools or the student groups at the secular universities, there's something really happening. Those groups are bulging at the seams. They're growing. You know. Tonight we had a huge crowd of young people on a weekday night, you know, who were just eager. I mean, we could have stayed for 2 hours more.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
people weren't drifting away and hands were in the air and the questions were like personal. What can I do? It wasn't like, well, what do you think about this? It wasn't like just a debate of ideas at this level. It was,
Let
what
me
can I do?
Move to a related question I have, which is, you know, we do have a lot of problems facing the world today. You know, climate change and poverty and trafficking, as you've mentioned. And there are a lot of people striving to make a difference. But what is it that Christians bring that is valuable or unique?
The most important thing is hope. That's our greatest contribution because movements without hope, they won't survive. And so while we bring constituency and resources and numbers and infrastructure and all that good stuff, our greatest contribution is the power and promise of hope.
And you think that's something that Christians have uniquely? Or?
Well, I think, I was asked once if I believed in the resurrection. I said I couldn't do what I do if I didn't believe in the resurrection. I do believe that, as Dr. King says, the long arc of history bends toward justice.
Ah, yes.
You know, and I think that kind of hope is believing in spite of the evidence, I said tonight, and then watching the evidence change. I talked about Desmond Tutu and how he believed that there would be a free South Africa. I remember talking to 14-year-old kids in Soweto in the townships way back before Nelson Mandela was released from prison, and I would say, will your children breathe free air in South Africa? 14-year-olds would look me in the eye and they would say, I will see to it.
Oh.
And that's when I knew apartheid's days were numbered.
Yeah, I found that very personally inspiring, actually, your message about, you know, believing in the change before it happens is what
that's right.
brings about the change.